You all remember this lady, Donu Kogbara, on the Arise TV interview that criticized Mr. Peter Obi for being a weak leader. According to her, she supported Mr. Peter Obi in the 2023 presidential election, but Mr. Peter Obi has gone from top to bottom, and she declared that she is no longer an Obidient. Well, at this point, you need to play that interview.
It is Peter Obi himself. I just don't understand how somebody who was this sparkling, inspirational figure, who created a movement almost overnight, galvanized the youths, the intellectuals, anybody who had any iota of principle in their bloodstream, at least admired him to some extent, even if they weren't necessarily going to vote for him for whatever reason. I don't understand how Peter Obi has gone from there to there, because as far as I'm concerned, he's like a firework that has turned into a damp squib. He's become so pedestrian. All I see is him making anodyne statements here and there on TV, wearing babariga and going to donate boreholes in Kafanchan or wherever. It's all good stuff. He's still a good guy. But where is the leader that the opposition needs so desperately? And he's not looking like it. And I blame Peter most of all, because Peter was a shining star. And so many people committed themselves to him emotionally, myself included. I'm not an Obidient anymore, to be honest with you, because he's such a disappointment. I mean, there's no aggression. The government is lousy. There's so many things this government is doing wrong. Contracts being awarded without due process. Economic collapse. Rampaging inflation. Widespread hunger and disillusionment. And, you never hear anything seriously punchy from Peter.
Well, in fairness to Peter, there is a lot of stuff that he comes up with, a lot of it on social media. I mean, he doesn't go on traditional media most of the time. That's relatively rare, except when he's sort of maybe at a public event or something. But he does come up with a lot of things challenging the government on social media. The question
he's too mild,
that you're raising
Charles.
Is whether it's effective enough.
He's too mild.
Yeah. Well,
you see,
he should go more for the jugular, basically.
He should go. He's got so much. There's so much he could go for, and he would get so much public support if he did. I'm not just speaking for myself, by the way. I'm speaking for hundreds of Obedients, ex-Obedients, or current Obedients who are really, really disappointed in him. We don't want a weak opposition leader. He's the star of the show. Atiku, PDP, they should also be doing more. But really, Peter is the star opposition player, and he's not doing well enough.
Her interview generated a lot of reactions, and it seems Mr. Peter Obi watched that interview and he paid her a visit. Mr. Peter Obi took to his official X account to post the visit he made to her, and he said, "Having watched the interview with Donu Kogbara on Arise TV and considering the concerns she raised, I felt it was important to visit her. As I've always maintained, leadership and personal growth are deeply tied to the ability to listen, learn, and engage with a variety of perspectives. I sincerely thank her for the warm reception and useful discussion we had. These kinds of interactions enhance understanding and pave the way for constructive dialogue." Looking at one of the images posted by Mr. Peter Obi here, you can see that he has a jotter and a pen, and he was taking notes while the woman was talking. Mr. Peter Obi has shown that he is not beyond criticism. As a matter of fact, he has said that if he is not being criticized, that means the people are not telling him the truth. He opened himself for intense criticism. This is the kind of leader we want, somebody that will be criticized, learn from the criticism, and make better adjustments. But here is the twist. This lady seems to have gotten a change of mind after her encounter with Mr. Peter Obi. She says she is now a repentant Obidient. She gave an interview on Punch newspaper where her encounter with Peter Obi and her change of mind was captured. Let me read it out to you. She wrote, "On Monday night, I appeared as a guest commentator on Prime Time, the popular and thought-provoking Arise television show that is hosted by the immutable Charles Anyalogo. We talk about the National Assembly legislators who recently defected from the Labour Party to the All Progressive Congress (APC). I disdainfully described them as rats deserting a sinking ship, then said that the ship would not have started to sink in the first place if the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, had embarked on aggressive anti-government crusade when the result of bluntly flayed elections were announced in 2023. I pointed out that Obi had won in every major city in southern Nigeria, including Tinubu's Lagos domain. I reminded the world that he is a superstar who was adored by millions of his compatriots. I also accused Atiku, the other key opposition leader, and key members of his People's Democratic Party, PDP, of being too passive. I expressed a fear that APC will win the 2027 election despite being far from competent and making endless mistakes. And I urge both Obi and Atiku to prevent this calamity from occurring by copying activists like the fearless, rebellious Delefa Rotimi, who has confronted the ruling elite so many times that he was arrested last week and has become a national hero as a result. Long story short, I said that I was no longer a member of the Obidient camp because I was disappointed in Obi, but I also made it clear that Tinubu has never been my cup of tea and that I would be delighted if the global trend for unseating incumbents, as recently seen in Syria, Ghana, Botswana, Senegal, etc., is replicated in Nigeria. As far as I was concerned, I was only complaining about Obi, whom I describe as a good man, who simply needs to become more pugilistic because I was a frustrated fan who desperately wants him to succeed and rescue this country. And I thought it was blindingly obvious that my heart was in the right place because I even, at the end of the interview, told Anyalogu that I was ready to risk arrest by acting as an unpaid and unrepentantly outspoken mouthpiece for Obi. I was therefore taken aback when a bunch of immanent lotish bush rats who claimed to be obedient descended on me via Twitter X and rained insult on my head. Some insisted that I'm a paid Tinubu agent, others called me a fool, an evil non-entity, and so on. I expected some Arise TV viewers to disagree with me and say that there is nothing wrong with Obi's current strategy, but I didn't expect to be disagreed within such a primitive and vicious way. Fortunately, not every Obi supporter is fair, and I also received a lot of positive reaction from folks who agreed with me. And guess what? Obi himself contacted me and said that he would like to talk to me face to face because he regarded some of my comments as constructive criticisms and wanted to explain his position. I was totally gobsmacked by his modesty and immediately offered to visit him, but he told me that he would visit Abuja a couple of days later and would just pop into my house on his way from the airport to the small hotels he stays in here. Believe it or not, despite being a billionaire, the only home he owns in Nigeria is in Onitsha. So he showed up on my doorstep yesterday morning with that an entourage, and my staff and I were blown away by his graciousness, humility and charisma. When I thanked him profusely for taking the trouble to visit me when I, as the non-VP, should have been visiting him, he laughed and thanked me for having him. Getting the opportunity to hear him out was an enormous privilege, and the conversation we had was thought-provoking and illuminating. I asked him to forgive my bluntness on Arise and explained that I just wanted him to deal with government bullies more decisively to prevent Nigeria from becoming a banana republic one-party state. I will not repeat everything he told me. Suffice it to say that only he who wears the shoes knows where they pinch, that he has been through a lot of stress, but is still fighting a good fight. A bit not as radically as hotheads and firebrands will wish, and that I now believe that his civilized methods can achieve desired results under certain circumstances. He is spending a lot of money on charitable causes in all four corners of Nigeria. He has traveled widely and has a clear vision of the things that need to be done to put this nation on the same footing as more sophisticated nation in which most citizens are comfortable. His grasp of statistics relating to development is impressive, as is his understanding of alternate political system that he feels we will benefit from emulating. He talked at length about the merit of South African-style proportional representation. He promised me a formal interview in the new year, and I'm looking forward to providing Vanguard readers with more insight into the mind of this iconic gentleman. By the way, I have just been told by someone else that some government supporters pretend to be obedient on social media platforms and are deliberately offensive to give Obi a bad name. I initially mentioned that the interview was on Punch, but it's on Vanguard. Now, Peter Obi paid her a visit, and from her conversation, she has had a change of mind. She has recounted her statement that she's no longer an Obidient. She's a full Obidient. But what is most exciting about all this is not because Mr. Peter Obi visited him. Peter Obi is a humble man, he's a gentleman, he visits everybody. I'm particularly more concerned about the content of their conversation. If you listen to her very carefully, you will notice that Peter Obi told her what he is doing behind the scene, that many people might not be seeing it because Peter Obi is not that radical politician that everyone wants him to do. Peter Obi is not like Showere that every little thing he will call for protest. Many Nigerians are looking up to Mr. Peter Obi to call for a protest. Many Nigerians want Mr. Peter Obi to shut down the country, but they don't understand that Mr. Peter Obi is working on a very complex situation. Mr. Peter Obi is working on a tightrope. Peter Obi is an Igbo man. Any little thing an Igbo person do in this country will be over amplified. Any little thing an Igbo man do in this country will be taken as a treason. So Mr. Peter Obi do not want to fall into the trap of those that want to capture him. So Mr. Peter Obi is using his head. He doesn't want to do anything that will jeopardize his chances of becoming the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is why he seems to be taking a more radical diplomatic approach that most people might not be seeing. And I'm sure that is what he discussed with this lady that made her to change her mind. If you listen to this lady, she said that definitely there is going to be changes. Mr. Peter Obi is going to bring the needed change that we all need in this country called Nigeria. Another thing I'm happy about is that Mr. Peter Obi has shown that he is not beyond criticism. You know, one thing that this government lack is the ability to take in criticism. They see criticism as an act of treason, but Mr. Peter Obi is not that kind of person. Criticism exposes your weakness. Criticism exposes your failings. Criticism helps you to understand the complex situation of a problem and give you the opportunity to know the solution. The reason why this government is failing so badly is because they don't listen to anybody. They listen to only those within their circles. And those within the circles of this government will always tell the government what the government wants to hear. That's the reason why Mr. Peter Obi is a different breed of politician. While we were all angry that the woman said what she said, Mr. Peter Obi has gone behind our back and made peace with the woman. That is who a leader is. That leader is Mr. Peter Obi, and that is the kind of leader that Nigeria currently needs. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.